Hey everybody, we're talking about ternary form, and specifically right now we're going to turn our attention to compound ternary form, which means that each of the big sections, A, B, and A prime, have their own internal organization. Most often the internal organization will be another type of binary form like rounded or simple binary or some other form design that we can identify. Let's dig in. So here's the piece as a whole. I wanted to get it all on one screen so that we could do an overview first before we dig into the minutia and details. So what we want to do here is try to figure out where our big three sections are. Now, this particular compound ternary form does not use repeat signs. So we have to use a combination of our ears and look for other kinds of visual cues that may be helpful. Also, you can pretty much safely assume that most ternary forms will have a different key area in the B section. So we can also look for visual cues that might help us there. I know that we're starting with the A section, so I'm going to go ahead and label that. Now, the question is, where does that A material return? And where does the contrasting B material happen? And what are the key areas involved? So before I give you that information, I want you to work through it a little bit. I'm going to play the recording and see if you can determine where the big ABA is and what the key areas are, overall key areas in each of these sections. Let's listen. So now that we've listened to it, let's think about these three large sections. The A section starts in measure 1. Then what I like to do is try to see, where did I hear that return occur? I'm not concerned about B yet. I want to get the A prime section. Did you hear the recurrence of that melody here in measure 35? That's where I heard it come back. Okay. Now, what about that B section? Did you notice in the score we have a visual cue? Lucky for us, there's a double bar there. And that's also where I am hearing the contrasting material. Notice we have a lot more separation, more rests in the texture compared to the A section. Also, the key changes there. So I'm going to mark it as the B section. This is measure 15. So these are our large sections. Let's also talk a little bit about key areas. The overall key is G major. You can see that we begin and end in G major. We do modulate in measure 15. Do you see a lot of those D sharps happening in there? Those D sharps are implying the key of E minor. That is a closely related key to G major. And not only is it closely related, but it's also the relative minor. Now, we do have a bit more detail in terms of key areas that we can hear in this piece. For example, the second phrase of the big A section modulates to the key of the dominant. And that recurs, of course, when we get the A prime section as well. The B section features the greatest amount of harmonic instability. We have a series of tonicizations that occur here using secondary dominants. Let's take a closer look. Here's our B section. We begin in the key of E minor. In measures 19 and 20, however, I hear a tonicization of A minor. Then I hear a tonicization of G major. But then we're right back into E minor. This material is restated here. So if we wanted to be even more specific on our form diagram, we could add these tonicizations to the form diagram using key areas in parentheses. I didn't leave myself a lot of room there, but you get the picture. The last thing I want to talk about is the internal structure of the A sections. Remember, this is a compound ternary form, meaning that the big sections have their own internal formal organization. Consider the A section. We have 3 parts, 3 phrases here. I label the first with an A. This comes back at the end of the internal A section here. And there is contrasting material in between those 2 phrases. Not only does the melody change, but we actually modulate for measures 5 through 10. Therefore, if I were to identify the internal form of the A section, meaning what is the internal form of measures 1 through 14, I would say this is a simple ternary. It is nested within this larger compound ternary form. Pretty cool. We're going to listen one more time to the entire piece. Here's what I would like for you to do as I play the recording. I would like for you to hear the ternary structure of the outer A sections. And then when we get to the B section, I would like for you to appreciate those key areas that we talked about, starting in E minor, modulating to the key of 2, A minor, then modulating or tonicizing, tonic, G, and then going back to E minor and repeating the process. Here we go. Here's the return of that first phrase. Contrast. third turn of A. I hope you enjoyed that analysis. That piece is a lot of fun. And there's a lot of activity packed into it in terms of modulation, tonicization of different key areas, a really robust kind of interesting contrast in texture when we get to the B section, as well as the internal ternary form within the A sections themselves.